You're listening to Thunder Quack Podcast Network. This is the Thunder Quack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunder Quack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunder Quack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunder Quack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com. You can get it early every Tuesday morning at patreon.com/thunderquack, or you can wait and get it late every Friday on podcast services across the galaxy. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Conkin.
Hey, guess what? We are not prepared to do a podcast this evening.
It's almost like we weren't prepared to do a podcast last week either, so we just didn't.
We just didn't. We decided to call an audible last week. I know the week before we had kind of said like, oh, maybe we'll just keep going through. I'll be honest, the last few weeks with all the podcasting and the live streaming and everything burnt me out. To the point that actually on Wednesday morning, it kind of started on Sunday, and it was one of the contributing factors to not recording last Monday night. But my back started to bother me. Nice. And then Tuesday night it was feeling pretty rough, and I woke up Wednesday and like couldn't move.
No.
Like it was really, really bad. So brutal. I've actually I lost like a day and a half of work. And I had a deadline this week that's now kind of been pushed to sometime next week. As a result, I'm stressed out the wazoo, and all of the live streams and coordinating that stuff, editing and posting. I still haven't edited the last live stream episode and posted it. Here's the news that comes out of this. We will not be doing live streams anymore. There's no point. I as much as it was nice to have Sherston and Jason in there commenting, that live streaming for an audience of 2 to 3, it's just there's just the logistical component of it that juice isn't worth the squeeze. So I'm gonna continue doing Quarantine Zone as an additional podcast until things start to go back to normal. But it won't be live anymore. It'll just be straight to the podcast feed. And what that'll do is it'll actually allow me to have some different guests on, people who don't mind. Or not who don't mind, people who do mind being up at 8:30 Pacific time, because let's say they're on the other side of the continent or in a different part of the world. It was kind of difficult to schedule, and I was running out of people in the Pacific time zone to bother. So so this will just make it easier because I'll just be able to record whenever it's convenient. And then put it out. So every week I'll do at least one episode, and I'll try to get back up to 2, if I'm able to handle that. But it was definitely having an impact. Between that intense. And work and everything, I was just sitting at my desk too much, and I think that was the main component in hurting my back. So
yeah. I have started, I think my back is going out because I'm actually trying to participate in my work sponsored Pilates classes, and my body's like, what are you doing to me? But it's very fun to actually get up and move. But speaking of podcasts that probably very few people are listening to, I'm very excited that the Frankenstein, Amanda Reed's Frankenstein, the whole first part is up and available, and I posted it so regularly. Mike, did you see?
Yep.
Anyways, it was out and it was pretty cool. I've now posted my 4 whole episodes all by myself. But But I think I had sort of like posted in the Thunderquack group that I'll just take a break this week, and then next week is my birthday, so I don't know if I want to post one necessarily on my birthday, but I also have to read the next chapters. Like I haven't quite got to the next ones, but I'll try to catch up this weekend and get a couple more episodes in the hopper. I do want to try to finish it, even if there's like only like a handful of people listening. But also, if you're not even listening, but if you have read Frankenstein in the past, I would love to know like if people have comments about Frankenstein, because I saw Curtis posted something about his Pullbox podcast, or he was doing something like Frankenstein-y the other day, and I almost wanted to like have a conversation with him and be like, hey Curtis, what's up? I'm getting excited about Frankenstein in a way that like, because I don't know what's happening, and now I like want to know, and it's taking all of my effort not to just like Wikipedia like Frankenstein so that I can like find out what happens. I have to actually read it. Ugh. Anyways, but I'm gonna keep going, so it's cool to have a platform.
I will say this. I'm very proud that you've been posting your episodes regularly and doing all of that. But there's something wrong with your posts, and I'm just now noticing, because the last 2 episodes, I wanted to look and see how they were doing, to give you a confidence boost. The first episode, which is the one that I helped you post,
yes,
has 100 downloads, which is good.
Oh, hey, that's nice.
But the subsequent 3 episodes don't barely have any downloads, have under 10 downloads each, and that's because they're not showing up on the podcast feed. So if you have no idea what Amanda's talking about, it's because she probably forgot to choose the right categories.
Damn it!
She's probably not checking the right boxes.
I checked so many boxes. There were so many boxes to check. Like, there's so many steps.
There's so many steps, but
it takes so much time.
You're lucky.
Oh man, and the first one's not even that good, so it's like kind of a bummer that people have the first one and not the other one.
Yeah, you didn't check the Thunderquack podcast.
Damn it.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now for you.
Aw, thank you. Well, now people are gonna get a flood of podcasts.
They're gonna get a whole bunch.
So many. Oh man, I was so punctual. Okay, can you also like screen cap what it is that you're clicking that I forgot? Is it in just our like on the Thunderquack website that I forgot to click Thunderquack?
Yeah, under categories, you clicked podcast, you clicked Amanda Reads, but you didn't click Thunderquack as well.
Oh, I didn't know I had to click the other one.
Yeah, Thunderquack is the category that actually goes out to the podcast feed. So.
Hey, well, I'm excited that 10 people downloaded it that didn't even really have that good of access to it. So, yay.
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably found it either through Spreaker or they were listening directly on the website based on your links.
Nice.
So yeah. But now you'll get your regular.
Yay!
Bump.
Thanks. I should have checked with you. You should know better than to just let me.
Than to trust you. Well, the problem is that I haven't been in there since the 2nd. So that was the last time that I posted something.
Well, actually, I mean, then this is even better. I'll wait a little bit. Like, I'll probably wait like 2 weeks, and then I'll post at the end of April. Like, I'll do like another one, because hopefully people will like listen to it and then let me know what's going on, what they think about Frankenstein. Or I'll just like, again, take a break because I can, because nobody is really chomping at the bit for
there you
Frankenstein.
Go. They're downloading properly now.
Yay! Thanks, Mike.
It happens like it's live as we.
Whoa!
How come that?
Look at that behind the scenes action. What a fun-filled episode of Thunderquack this is.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Everybody.
But it's like people are creating content. I do say, like, one of the first Thunderquacks that we had while all of this sort of craziness was going down was just talking about the creativity and like what might be some positive things that are coming out of this. And I will say there is a lot of art being made, and I do think that that's kind of like, it's kind of interesting, and seeing how people are shifting and seeing how I think we got into our first digital film festival. Like, we applied to like a standard film festival, and they just reached out to us today and is like, hey, we're actually going to do this, and it's going to be online. Are you interested? So we've got to talk to the director and see if we'd be cool in that. But it's like stuff is still happening around the world. And have you watched Some Good News? Like,
no, I haven't jumped into that yet. I know what you're talking about. John Krasinski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was something that I was like, the first episode, I was like, what is this random thing? But then the second episode, because it was like things that I actually cared about, I like watched it, and it had totally a shout out to the Okanagan. So it was pretty cool that basically, yeah. Anyways, somebody in the Okanagan was doing like a Some Good News Okanagan parody, and then he was like, look at all these people doing cool things. But it's just funny because he said like Okanagan, Canada, and it's like, well, Okanagan's like more of a region than it is an actual city, but it's okay.
The problem is that Americans have a hard time understanding it because we don't have counties.
Oh,
right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
for them, they would be like, "Oh, that's like the Skagit County, right? Like which is in Washington, right? And which is a region. It's not a specific city. It's an area, right? Which the Okanagan for us is basically everything that's along the Okanagan Lake, but it's kind of the whole surrounding region. There are cities all throughout it, and people aren't going to understand that necessarily if they aren't familiar with British Columbia and our regions. So
yeah,
but that's cool. That's good that they got a shout out.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I don't let's do this. And you're not prepped, so hopefully you've got something off the top of your head. But I want to share one thing, a good thing, that we're both enjoying. One thing each that we're enjoying right now.
Okay.
While all of this is going on, do you have one off the top of your head?
I have a couple actually.
Okay, go for it.
But I'm also like I deal with not having to leave my house very well.
Yeah.
And so if people provide opportunities to connect that don't require me to leave my house, I'm more inclined to join. So I've already done 2 birthday parties, and one of them was with a friend who never in a million years would she have had a digital birthday party. And she lives across the world and a lot of her friends are spread all over the place.
Yeah.
So for us to be able to come together and just celebrate her and just like talk and drink some wine and have a little dance party, it was just so lovely and cute. And that continues to happen. Like there's just people all over the place. My high school, somebody posted in a group that I didn't even know I was part of on Facebook. I actually, to be honest, might not be part of the group. It might just be that I'm friends with them, and then it showed up in my wall because it was like a post that they posted. But somebody basically like posted in my grad wall being like, "Hey, do you guys want to like meet up for a Zoom call? Like we could all connect." And I was like, "What? That would never in a million years happen that like people from my high school would just like decide to connect if we weren't all just sitting in our houses." And so I just thought that was like, that's kind of a really cool thing that people are finding ways to connect across the void. And now that like I haven't been to my childhood home, I came home every summer during university, but then when I got into my master's program, I like stopped. So like I haven't been home for more than like 2 weeks at a time since like 2008, I want to say 2008. And I am now ready to stay at my childhood home for like months. And I do actually kind of quite like my parents. So like I get along really well with them, and like they like indulge me with like playing board games with me. And that's something that I wouldn't get to do on my own because I was kind of just like on my own. So being able to connect with them and like be here, and like I rewatched all of The Mandalorian this weekend because my mom, I think we've talked about this before, but my mom's actually kind of a nerd. So like me and my mom, like I was like, "Mom, there's a Star Wars show." And then we got to the last episode and my dad's like, "I've seen this." And I was like, "How on earth have you seen this?" And I realized I watched it over Christmas and I watched the last episode, and he was just like sitting watching, like doing a puzzle.
Yeah.
So he's totally like seen the last episode. So anyways, but it's like, there's just like some unexpected reconnections that are happening even as we are like more disconnected from some people. I find that it is opening up connections in ways that like would not have happened previously.
Well, that's good. Yeah, now I have to say something, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm hard pressed.
You're the one that
It was my idea. I know. Yeah, I don't know. I know that for a lot of people, they're getting time to kind of like kind of what you're talking about, like reconnect and maybe get a little bit of downtime even, or just like sort of time to yourself. I have not had any of that stuff, but it has been good. It has been good to be around the girls more, and to not miss as many things. because when you're at work and handing kids off to grandparents to watch them or preschool or whatever, you kind of you're missing a lot of stuff. You're not getting to experience the full like active history of your kids as they grow up. So being with, in particular, like Kara is definitely, she learns new stuff all the time and she's becoming a more interesting human being every day. But because Cassie is still so young, those developmental milestones come like hard and fast. Like they are, it's something new on a regular basis. And, it's funny, when all of this started, she had some sounds and stuff like that, but not really any words. We were working on sort of some of the baby sign language stuff and getting her to say more and mommy and daddy and milk and that sort of thing.
Aw.
But it's now basically been a month, right? And like she's progressed so much in that month, and she's changed so much, and seeing the two of them every day and being around them and seeing how different their personalities are, which is so funny because you feel like I'm doing all the same stuff with Cassie that I did with Kara, but Cassie is a very different person already. And being around them as much as we are right now, it's I don't know, it's not necessarily more noticeable, but you're just kind of more present for it. The other part of it is just not really having the convenience of being able to get away, right? Like we sort of, when it's there, it's like, oh, I'm going to go to the grocery store. Right. And so I go to the grocery store during the week, probably like 2 or 3 times more than we really need to. Because it's like, oh, we're almost out of that one thing. I'm gonna go get that and get a couple other things. We're not doing that, right? We're obviously doing more consolidated grocery shops. I did go grocery shopping last Tuesday night. I think it's one of the things that ended up pushing me over the edge with my back. So instead of resting, I was pushing a grocery cart around shopping a grocery store, and tense, right? Because you're worried about like, that person's getting too close or whatever.
Right.
But it's so there's just not those escapes of like, I'm gonna go run an errand. I'm gonna go do this. I'm going to commute on the train to work and have some alone time. There's not those sort of like I said, convenient little outs. So you're forced to be more present and active in their lives, which I with them at this age, at the ages that they're at specifically, it's a good thing. Like it's just, as much as it can be frustrating and exhausting and all that sort of thing, it'll be very interesting to look back on in 10 or 15 years and think about like, hey, remember when we were all stuck in the house together? No, of course you don't. You were so little, right? Like,
or they might totally like remember it just being a time of love and like connection.
I think that Kara will definitely have some memories of this period in her life, but it's been really interesting to see if you subscribe on Patreon to the uncut version, you'll hear a little bit more about us talking about our parents and how the different generations are handling social distancing and stuff. But it's really interesting to see with our parents, with my parents, my mom and dad, and then Crystal's mom and stepdad, and then her dad, the different ways that they're all handling social distancing and to what varying degrees they're following the rules. And then Kara, being a child, not fully understanding what's going on, but understanding enough to be able to talk about it. And it was really funny because the other day, Crystal's dad was on the phone with her, and he was saying like, well, I just need to go do this and that, and like I gotta go, this and the blah blah blah, and he's like listing off all of these things that he's gonna go do and like 10 places that he's gonna go, and Crystal is like, you can't do that. You have to limit these things. If you can do it via email or, like mail it or whatever, like that's what you need to do. You need to not be going out. You need to not be talking to the people who live in your apartment complex, like unless they're 6 feet away from you. Right. And it's like, oh yeah. Well, they're 6 feet away. They just stand on the balcony. It's like, no, your balcony's not 6 feet, right? And it's like, she was kind of like giving him a hard time. And Kara is sitting there and going, and she yells because Crystal's on speakerphone or whatever. And Kara she yells, you can't see your friends right now because of the virus. It's very dangerous. And I was like, there you go. The 3-year-old gets it. So it's funny. And I think it just has a lot to do with sort of like the neuroplasticity of a 3-year-old's brain, which is constantly evolving and constantly trying to figure out the world that it lives in, and navigate it and figure out what these rules are and that sort of thing. So she's very quick to adapt, right? Very agile in that sense. But then as we get older, this is just science. Our neuroplasticity just is not as good as it is when we're younger. Our brain cells just start to get tired after a while, and our neural pathways are forged, and it's difficult to break out of patterns, right? And that's the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So I think that for like the older that you are down that line, the harder it is for you to. It's not that like the older generations don't understand what the problem is or the severity of it. It's the break from routine, right? It's so hard to break from that routine because, like, especially like say someone who's retired, your routine is all you have because you don't have anywhere to be. You don't have anything to do unless you create those things. So for a good chunk of our parents, I think that's like, if you're in your mid to late 30s, like that's where your parents are at. They've actually just started sort of that retirement life and gotten into their groove, and then here comes this whole crisis to sort of pop them out of it and force them to have to adapt. And I think it's tough. But that moment when Kara was like, you can't do that. It's dangerous because of the virus. And it's like, okay, she gets it. Like, and it did take the better part of 3 weeks to get that into her head, to get her to understand the concept of what a virus is. And there's a variety of different things that we use to teach her that. But having that, she had a eureka moment at some point, and it wasn't visible probably, right? It was probably just in her head and she realized it. She may have processed it while she was sleeping, right? And just woke up and just understood. But having her verbalize that she got it was just like, it was a very, it's like a proud moment where you're like, okay, she gets it. Like, all of these conversations that we're having are actually sinking in, and she understands why she can't see her friends. It's not as frustrating. That said, today, actually the last couple of days, she's been having a bit of a rough time, and I think it's because she's quite sick of us. The routine around here has not been what I would consider regular, particularly last week with me having hurt my back. So the days that I was responsible to watch them while Crystal was working, there was a lot of TV because I was just laying on the couch and just like, I can't really do anything. I can't really play any games or do any activities. So there was a lot more TV than normal. But thank God for Bluey, which is an animated show on Disney Plus. That's actually from Australia, and it's awesome. It's such a good show. And we have watched, there's one season of it on Disney Plus, and we've watched it back to front, I would say probably about 5 times since this started, which is a lot in 1 month. But it's a really, really well made show. I'm not going to say much more on it because Matt Campbell is going to come on Quarantine Zone, and that's probably what we're going to talk about for the most part, because we both really, really like it, which is a
so
weird thing to
random,
say.
I love it.
Well, it's a mentality that you get into as a parent, where you know your kids want to watch the preschool shows, and they are good to varying degrees, right? Paw Patrol is a very well made show. I don't mind sitting and watching Paw Patrol with Kara, but we've seen every episode of it, and it's very repetitive. PJ Masks is another example, and it's like I just can't get into that one. It's just kind of too simplistic for me. And then there's the likes of like Peppa Pig, which I hate Peppa Pig. I absolutely detest Peppa Pig because it's just
love it.
I know, like, kids love it, and a lot of people seem to be down with it, but there's a lot of very bad information that Peppa Pig imparts to kids. And it's frustrating to watch. And then they start saying things with Britishisms, and you're like, don't do that. Don't call it a lorry. It's a truck. You know, there's a little bit of that stuff, but I mean, with Bluey, we're getting the same thing. One of the things that they say a lot is straight away. It's like, why can't I do it straight away? I want to know how to do it straight away. And so Kara has really latched onto that phrase, and she says straight away all the time now. But it's kind of cute when she does it, so it's okay. And I would rather that she use, I said this to Crystal the other day, I was like, I'd rather that she uses like Australian and Kiwi colloquialisms than British ones. I know they're very similar, but there's also just like a slight, I don't know. I just prefer it. But yeah, so I guess my good thing is just extra time with my kids, which isn't that dissimilar from yours, which is you're saying time with your parents.
Connecting. Yeah.
But yeah,
and the ability to catch up on all these things and not feel guilty about it, and the fact that, like, honestly, I made like a joke about like throwing my back out by doing Pilates, but honestly, to not have to like get ready and be able to just wear gym clothes in the morning, so that I don't have to like get ready to go like work out or something like that, and just like makes me just more inclined to like do something active, because I don't like. Half of the reason why I don't go to the gym in the middle of the day is because it gets so sweaty and it just takes so much time. Whereas if you're like at your house anyways, then you just like can change quickly and like wash up, and like it just becomes easier to do a lot of things. So I'm an advocate for a work from home. At the end of the day, that I think it is going to shift things, I think, in a positive direction for some of that once we get through all. I
think for the 1/3 of the world, of at least of the Western world, that has the ability to work from home, I think that it's a positive thing that now we're all set up to do it, and our companies are for the most part, I think, adapting to it. I think that's a positive thing. I think that'll be a win for society and the ecosystem as a whole. Certainly the pause that capitalism and sort of the more imperialistic expansion type of damage that we do to the world, the break from that stuff has been nice for the earth in general. I mean, when I see pictures of Los Angeles right now, and you can see everything, right? Like these aerial shots where it's like you can see clear past the mountains, and it's like their skyline looks like our skyline in Vancouver, which, like, we don't really have smog here. It can happen every once in a while, but it's not that bad. Yeah,
I'm trying to find things. That's why I'm like, you heard sounds come out
that's
of my
fine.
like. I'm trying to like queue up something like nerdy to actually talk about. So I'm like,
no, we're not going to talk about anything particularly nerdy because
I love
we're
it.
about to take a break and then we're going to come back and talk about something else.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I think that we all kind of needed a little bit of a push to recognize that what we were doing to the planet is actually like we're actively hurting it, doing a lot of damage. And we don't have to be in a lot of instances. We don't have to be commuting an hour and a half both ways to get to work necessarily. And some people have to. Some people who they work at a hospital and it's across town for whatever reason, they have to.
Yeah.
So those of us who don't have to, we probably just shouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, as
maybe
much as
there's some
possible, right?
Positive things that we could do. Yeah, for sure.
So I think that if that can be a cultural shift and a lesson learned that we can carry through when the crisis is over, I think that is at least a silver lining. It's a positive, and it's it's not everything, but it definitely makes an impact. So yeah, and I don't know. I really hope that the push for EVs and not just cars, but also like electric powered or alternative fuel source aircraft. That with I think maybe I brought this up on the last episode, or I maybe it was on one of the quarantine zones, but the idea that as a lot of the smaller airlines or even some of the bigger airlines, because they're not having a good time with the lack of travelers and whatnot, as some of them kind of fall away and leave spaces in that industry, when the world gets back up to I don't want to say business as usual because I hope we don't go back to that, but
Right.
But when we get back up to the capacity that we had before and reasons to go places and to travel, hopefully it gives the space for some innovators to come into that industry and bring with them some cleaner solutions than burning fossil fuels in jets. And then we can all feel a little bit better about it. I actually think I posted it on my Facebook the other day. A little sort of one of those little inspirational things or whatever that was, I won't go through all of them, but it's like the inventor of the light bulb worked by candlelight, right? The inventor of
I saw that.
the inventor of the engine got everywhere on a horse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the innovators and the scientists and the engineers that will create the green technology that we need, they have to use the systems and the technology that we have right now in order to get there. So the argument of, oh, well, you all want to talk about green energy, but you flew in airplanes to get to this conference. It's like, well, yeah, because there isn't an alternative, but what we want to talk about is finding the alternative. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that just making sure that that's our conversation is that we need to be conscious of the things that we're doing, the technologies that we're using, but we also need to not be lazy, either ideologically or in the literal sense, and we need to actually start for those of us who aren't scientists and technologists and all that sort of thing, we have to start changing the way that we do things, changing our routines and being more conscious, and supporting emerging trends in technology, but the scientists and everything that come up with this stuff, they need to stay focused on those things, because otherwise, man, we're going to continue to have problems like the one that we're having right now. But with that, I think we should take a break for some ads. But before we do that, I just want to thank our Patreon producers, Jason J. Samuel and Brian Murowski. Thank you guys for supporting us over at patreon.com/thunderquack. If you like the podcast, you can support us at patreon.com/thunderquack as well. You can get the podcast ad free. You can get it early on Tuesdays, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. And you can get the uncut version, which this week is about an extra 15 minutes, but sometimes it can be upwards of 40 minutes of extra content. So that's definitely, I think, worth looking into if you enjoy the podcast. And we thank everybody who does support us at whatever level you can afford to support us. And I'll also just say that, like, it's great that people do support us, but if you've got disposable income and you don't support us on Patreon right now, we're not the first place that disposable income should go at the moment.
Yeah,
there are
that's
a
right.
lot of charities. There's food banks are really hurting right now. There are a lot of different COVID-19 relief organizations around the world. So depending on where you are, I would stress that they need money first, and then if you've still got some left over, which you shouldn't, but if you do, you can kick in over at patreon.com/thunderquack and support yet another white guy with a beard and a podcast and his sidekick. You're the sidekick, Amanda.
Oh, yay.
In this analogy. No, but I'm just saying, you know, like I'm the last guy who needs to be out here begging people for money. We're okay. Thunderquack is doing fine. So support other stuff first, or if you really want to, go to store.thunderquack.com and buy something, buy merchandise, because then, you know, there's a much bigger I don't know, it's like a value chain, I guess. I'm using work terminology on a podcast. I don't like it, but there's more that money will affect more people than just the Thunderquack crew, which, like, we're all used to doing this for free. So yeah, go do that. Go buy a t-shirt or stickers or something like that. People have been. I brought up the stickers on a podcast a little while ago, and people have been going and buying stickers. So.
Oh my God, you guys, I bought like $150 worth of stuff on Redbubble the other day because my birthday's coming up and I wanted to buy myself something, and I wanted to support like local artisans, because because we do a lot of our stuff through Redbubble, right? And so you can buy anything. There's so much stuff.
All sorts of artists over on
I don't know if it's maybe the best thing for me to just be getting stuff like continually delivered to my house, but it's better than me like buying it on Amazon. So that was actually, I'll tell my other like generosity of capitalist spirit after the break too, because I have another one.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. Okay, tell your story. Tell your little story, because then I'm gonna take us into a different. I'm gonna shift us into a different gear entirely.
Okay.
After that.
I want to play Pandemic. I've wanted to play Pandemic for a really long time, like the board game. It's so fun. I don't know if you haven't played it. It's like a cooperative board game. And so like I've been looking at it for a while and I never got it. And so I'm now here in the Okanagan and I was like, well, you know what my parents get me for my birthday is Pandemic, because I'm making them play board games with me anyways. And so, but then I was like looking online, and to get it from the actual store in the US, like you have to pay US dollars and then there's shipping costs. And to get it on Amazon, it was going to like not arrive till like mid-May, and it's still like $55. And then I was like, oh my God, I could just buy it in Penticton. And there's this random store called Serious Science and Nature, like SIRUS. It's fun. I called them and the answering machine says, hey, just so you know, we're open, but we're not like, you have to come, you have to knock, like call ahead, let us know what you're looking for. And if we have it, you can come and like you could pick it up. And so I called them and I was like, hey, is there any chance that you have Pandemic? And so it was an answering machine. And then they called me back like within 10 minutes, had it. We were downtown because this was the time that my parents had decided to go sit at the beach and eat ice cream in our car. So we had been doing that. And then so I totally bought Pandemic for much more than it was probably like, but because like, you know, when it's an independent store, it's like a little bit more, but it like didn't have to get shipped and they already had it. And it was like money to a local business. Anyways, and for my birthday, I now get to play Pandemic and I'm very excited. So it just was like kind of a cool like a cool thing to be like, I want something and it's available to me now, because that's the kind of capitalist society we live in. And it's kind of the opposite of like when the big box chains can't give you something, that's when local businesses can. And it's sort of like that's how capitalism works. If it's like, and I know that I'm maybe talking to the wrong crowd if I'm talking about like yay capitalism, because you were just talking about how it was maybe not the best. But there are some things that I like about like being able to like look towards like direct to consumer and like being able to get people what they want in like the best and easiest way. Is not so anyway,
I would be super clear about something. I don't have a problem with capitalism. I think that unchecked capitalism, like the kind that specifically happens in America, it's very damaging. But I mean, like, capitalism isn't necessarily the problem, because China operates on communism, and like they're doing more damage to the planet and taking more advantage of their although you know what, these days, this is what we're going to get into. So they're not taking advantage of their population much more than the American government is, but the systems are flawed. But I personally think that capitalism is a good system. Obviously that comes from me being a very privileged person, and it works for me. But it's just we need more regulation. And that
I like
regulation,
socialist capitalism, where there's like that socialist net there. I like it.
Exactly. And to me, that's I super topical stuff that's being talked about right now. Universal base income. And obviously, social medicine, social health, socialized healthcare. These are probably the two biggest things that I think would lift the whole world if they could be something that we can all agree on. But the system that we have right now, particularly again America, of sort of just corporate, I don't really even have the right words for it. It's just sort of the idea that corporations are people and that they have rights is flawed. Because what ends up happening is a corporation's rights end up going head to head with human rights, and human rights don't have money, but corporate rights do. So the corporate rights win out. And that's what we've seen in the Western world. But it's really what we've seen all over the planet, in almost every society, is that, you know, like it really ends up being the people with the money that make the rules. And they're obviously going to make the rules that result in them getting more money. And I had a whole tirade on Twitter the other night about it. I saw a video of a nurse in New York. Not a New York native. She had traveled to New York and it appeared living in a hotel in order to work on the front line, because New York City is not having a good time with this pandemic right now. The majority, I think, of cases in the United States are coming out of New York. And it's just because it's such a dense population center, and they didn't respond fast enough. I think California did a pretty good job of responding before it got out of control, but even then not fast enough, as well as in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle did a pretty good job of responding as soon as the threat was clear. But in other parts of the United States, there was a little bit of a delayed response, and that just even that fraction of a delayed response has resulted in thousands upon thousands more cases. And those thousands and thousands of more cases result in thousands more deaths. And it's really upsetting to me personally, because we're in this situation because of the decisions that people made back in 2016, right? Like the people who didn't vote, the people who didn't really care where their vote went and whether they voted independent and basically tossed a vote out the window, or they voted Republican regardless of who the candidate was. Like that put in an administration that, like, it's not that Trump is an idiot. And I think that this is one of my things that I want to make super clear to everybody who's listening, because the dialogue so often is about, look at this man, he's so stupid. And honestly, I feel like that's a smokescreen on the part of the GOP to detract from what the actual conversation should be, which is that there are all these other people around him. Even if he is an idiot, I don't think he's a particularly bright person. I think he's a very cunning and clever person. I think he's willing to cross lines in order to benefit himself, and that's probably the worst part of it. But he's not stupid. He's not like a complete and utter moron, like the media and I think like popular culture likes to paint him out to be, because he's there. Like he's done this. He's pulled this off. And he's done that through very clever manipulation. And I say that to say this isn't what's happening in the United States right now. It's not an accident. It's not a oops, I guess we should have done something. When he gets up and he stands in front of the nation and really in front of the world and says, "Oh, we got to use this hydroxychloroquine. That's what we got to do. Pump everybody full of it. It's the cure. It's gonna save us all." I don't understand why doctors aren't just using this. And it's like the reality of it is that a lot of doctors are using that as an attempt to treat COVID-19, and it doesn't work. And there are significant risks that come with administering it. So it's not a good solution. But so you go like, well, why is he saying that? Is it just because he's stupid? It's not because he's stupid. It's because he owns companies that profit from the sale of that drug, right? Like, it's not hard to do the math. Him and his buddies make money off of pushing this product. And he's using his platform as the president of the United States of America to trick people into buying snake oil, like in a very literal sense, not in a literal sense that they're selling snake oil, but in a literal sense that like he is using that tactic. It's not, this isn't a conspiracy theory. It's not like I'm not implying anything. There's no insinuation here. It's like flat out. He gets up in front of people and pushes a drug that experts are telling him and the rest of the world does nothing to treat COVID-19, but is in fact a very, not dangerous drug, but it's a drug that comes with significant risk, right? So it's something that should only be used to treat the right kinds of illnesses, because it's balancing risk reward. And when it comes to COVID-19, administering that drug, it's an expense that people shouldn't have to pay for, which a lot of Americans are paying for things out of pocket. And you want to talk about an economic crisis, it really doesn't matter what happens, whether people go back to work or not. The people who are getting treatment and don't have proper health care because their health care is tied to their ability to work, and getting this illness has meant that they don't have jobs anymore. So now they don't have health care to pay for the thing that is the reason why they lost their job. Like, those people aren't coming out of this situation in a good spot. And there is no social safety net in America that's going to catch them. And what is it, like $1,000 that everybody got is not going to do anything. The stimulus package is it was really just a way for them to get a bunch of money to corporations back into their own pockets and away from taxpayers. Like it's not even, it used to be a shell game, right? Like that first 3 years, it was this shell game of like, don't look over here at this horrible thing that we're doing because we're going to do something really sensational over here. Right. So while we're doing the sensational thing, you're not even gonna notice. And they're just kind of constantly moving the bad news around in this shell game. They're not like it appears that they're not even attempting that anymore. They're just straight up being evil in full view and getting away with it because the world is in crisis. And it's not just America. When you look at you guys know me. I haven't done like research. I don't have numbers or anything like that to back it up, but it's not hard to see that when you look at the countries that have right wing, sort of that extreme right wing leadership in power right now in America, in the UK, like in a lot of Europe. Those countries are not doing particularly well. The countries that don't have social safety nets, the countries that don't have a government that's currently focused on things like human rights or are actively undermining human rights, those are the countries that are being the hardest hit by this. And the countries with either moderate or progressive governments are weathering this a lot better. Everybody's getting hit by it. There's no getting away from it. But like when you look at what's happening in New Zealand, where they have a very progressive, very liberal, very socially minded government, they've actually like they shut everything down right away. They protected their people. They made sure that there were programs in place as soon as possible. Like they did everything that you should do, and they have a much smaller population, so it's easier for them to pull that off. But that doesn't mean that
it's like it's how you go about like reacting to things, and that there is some stark contrast. I did like the one like comparison where it's like, what do all of these countries that are handling the crisis well have in common? And it was like a bunch of like female leaders, where it's like there are some awesome ladies doing some great
Absolutely.
stuff. And I mean, I don't know if it doesn't really mean anything to people outside of BC, but I don't know what other people's like official like health person is, but our like Dr. Bonnie Henry is our like official like spokesperson for like health in British Columbia. She works really close with the health minister, and she's fantastic. Like, so I think that makes a difference too, to like how you react to stuff. Like BC is doing quite well comparatively to other like populous. I mean, really, there are really just the three big provinces, and other provinces might get mad at me for saying that. But like, there's like Ontario and Quebec and BC and Alberta, essentially for like high populous areas. And I think that like Dr. Henry is doing a fantastic job of like keeping our population like a little bit more calm and hopefully being able to like right us again. So.
When you look at it so the number of confirmed cases per 1 million people, so it's kind of a way to look at it like on a level playing field. British Columbia is faring as well as Saskatchewan, which when you look at the differences in population between British Columbia and Saskatchewan, it's not even close. Like we have way more people here. So what that tells you is that like we've actually handled things better than Saskatchewan, because Saskatchewan doesn't have any population to get infected. So the fact that they're around the same place that we are, it's like that it kind of balances it out, right? Like the only provinces really doing a lot better than us are Manitoba, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. Like PEI is
Prince Edward has like one or something. I think they're and I mean the territories are pretty good. Oh my god, someone did the best pun. I saw it on the internet where it's like none of it didn't have any cases. I think they might still not, but anyways,
I don't think they do.
And someone responded, well, like that's because they're having none of it. and it was really funny.
It's also because none of it has no population, not zero, but like a very, very small
It's just more
population.
secluded. It's just more secluded.
And
it's
they're
like so
and it's
spread out.
remote. Everybody's remote.
It's just remote. That's what I meant. Not secluded, remote.
Yeah.
They're just like it's like just all over the place. So
Yeah. So yeah, it has been really interesting to see. It sucks that it's something that is killing people. The current total is 119,000 deaths that are related to COVID-19, that are confirmed related to COVID-19 across the world, and we're almost at 2 million total confirmed cases. It sucks that that's what has to be the thing to highlight these huge flaws in our systems of government and the way that we're doing things. But if ever we needed a wake up call, I think that like now is kind of the time, and we're getting it. Like this is it. So I really hope that Americans take everything that has happened to heart, and I hope that people understand it, and that they're not just listening to their own echo chambers, but they're actually hearing these stories from these healthcare professionals who are on the front lines of this, and understand the position that they're in is I don't want to say that it's something that they asked for, but it's certainly something that a lot of the majority of voting public enabled, right? And that's, to me, the worst part of it is the apathetic portion of the population, and we have that problem in Canada as well. But yeah, the people who go like, well, my vote doesn't count, doesn't really matter, so I'm not even going to bother. And it's like, well, actually, if all of the people who felt that way got out and voted their conscience, and because most of those apathetic people actually tend to sway liberal when they're pushed, the world would be a different place if we could just galvanize people and get people off their butts and caring about their fellow person. And I don't know, it's almost like taking away our ability to socialize is the thing that makes us realize that everybody else is important too.
Right.
But again, like, it's so hard to know if that's a lesson that's really being learned, because that's what I'm hearing in my circles and with the people that I follow. But then there's still a lot of people out there who are supporting Trump in the midst of this. And I have had friends who have sort of stayed on the fence, or they've kept their opinions hidden at least, that have come out of the woodwork in the last month and are basically telling me to shut up, and that, like, oh, well, he's doing the best job that he can. And it's like, he's not doing the best job that he can. He's intentionally undermining efforts from people that are trying to do the best job that they can. And when you've got one of the leading experts on the planet in this virus, with Dr. Fauci standing next to him, and he like literally face palms in the middle of a press conference, it's like,
it's so weird. It's like an alternate reality where you're like, how is that? Anyways, it's
yeah.
Sorry, I don't have like much. You're just like bumming me out. I'm sorry that I don't have much to like talk. Like,
I know it's a bummer, but to me, it's important that we have the dialogue, or at least the monologue in this instance, of like a conversation about this, because I think that everybody is so beaten down right now that that like the John Krasinski Some Good News thing, that's great and I love it, but at the same time, so I think I talked about this on another podcast. It's the difference between optimism and positivity, right?
Right.
And I get all of this from Simon Sinek, who's a leadership expert. And he writes books and whatever on leadership. And he had a really good YouTube video thing, or he put it out on Instagram originally, but you can find it on his YouTube, about the difference between positivity and optimism. Optimism is a good thing. Because optimism is a part of an infinite mindset that, you know, like finite versus infinite really quickly. Finite is like a football game is finite. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And at the end of it, somebody wins, right? Like there's a clear goal and there are parameters around that. And people attack a lot of problems with finite mindsets, but most problems, or most of the things that we do on a daily basis, not necessarily problems, but they're infinite games, not finite. Like you can't win at a relationship. You can't win at your career, right? You have to always kind of be thinking, am I ahead or behind? And if you're thinking in that infinite mindset, optimism is a good thing, because optimism is, it's not necessarily good right now, but we know that it will be better. It can be better, right? And it's goal oriented, and it puts you in the mindset of, okay, this sucks, right? Being stuck at home sucks. Not being able to do the things that we want to do sucks. Not having the freedoms that we take for granted sucks. That's all awful. But this will end, and we will come out the other side of it. But don't ignore the part of it that sucked, because if we ignore the part of it that sucked, you know, the history repeating itself thing tends to happen. Positivity is, this is good no matter what, right? Like positivity is putting a candy coating on everything. And I think that people fall into that trap in the midst of a crisis like this, because it is difficult to process this much negativity on a daily basis. And if you need to go into a positive mindset every once in a while in order to protect yourself, and that's a coping mechanism that you have, that's fine. I just think that people should be conscious of it, right? So that when you can come out of that, you can realize, okay, I ignored that for a day. I ignored everything for a day, and I stayed positive because that's what I needed to do in order to, you know, take care of myself first before I can take care of other things. But living in a positive mindset it's not going to be helpful to anybody. That's just walking around with a smile on your face while Rome burns, right? Like it's
I talked about the book Everything Is Effed, right?
Yeah. It's a similar stuff.
It was similar to that,
yeah.
Right? Like
so for me, it's like we started with the not positivity, but just sort of like with the here's some good stuff, here's some silver linings, but now it's kind of like let's talk about the I guess elephant in the room, that is the horribly broken system, and the system that enables a human being like Trump, and I always feel bad when the words human being come out of my mouth in relation to him, but we have a system, and it can happen in Canada as well, because we had Stephen Harper as our prime minister for a lot longer than I think most of us want to admit, and it's not that Trudeau is all, you know, sunshine and roses either. He's done some pretty heinous stuff in his time as prime minister, but like America, it's very glaringly obvious at the moment because they have a reality TV clown as their president, and he is using that platform, like I said, to profit off of the deaths of thousands of people, of American citizens, people that voted for him, right? And it's so antithetical to what I perceive the American way as. And we've talked about this before. We talked about this a lot on Arrow when we would get into, you know, negativity about the United States. But then go back to like, we're both Superman fans, and Superman, right. His thing is truth, justice, and the American way. And I believe in those ideals as well. We're Canadian, so our ideals are very similar. Truth, justice, and a lot of the things that comprise the American way are important to us as well. We're just a little bit more polite about it, I think. Apologetic, some would say.
Yeah, like Tim. Yeah, I would
timid. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But like America has very, very clearly, and I think that the majority of our listeners understand this, and they're right there with us. Certainly the ones that communicate with us on a regular basis, I think, are right there with us. That America has definitely lost its way. That it's not what it's not the sort of ideological haven that it purports to be, and a lot of those ideologies that the founders of America set in place are being ignored or twisted at the moment in order to serve a very small percentage of the population, and other people are being manipulated into believing that what's being done is for their good, and it's so difficult to deal with because it's so irrational. And the only way that I have to deal with it, not being in America, not being part of that system, is a rational way, which is by talking about it, right? And not just screaming, but like trying to have a reasoned conversation about it. It's just super frustrating to see it happening in our lifetime, that it's really just like kind of falling apart, and the things that have happened really since 9/11 and the freedoms that have sort of slowly been eroded and taken away, and replaced with a lot of this sounds so dramatic, but it's true. Like there's like, it's basically subjugation and just kind of an overall it's just like, I feel like a lot of Americans have just been tricked into handing over the keys to the kingdom to these people, to Trump and Pence, and I mean, like going back to George Bush, and
you haven't used really the word billionaires.
Yeah.
And or like I don't know, just like people, like moneyed people, and not necessarily just corporations. But you're also, I'm very sorry that I'm not like contributing too much to this, because I feel like I'm just like helping you in your cathartic release a little bit with this by just being like, yes, sure, talk about it. But like subjugation is a really strong word, so I just want people to I get what you're like, but where you're coming at, but like,
what else is it when like you see the Obama administration, whether they did it right, whether they executed it properly or not, that's up for debate. But the attempt to put in a public healthcare system, that benefits everybody, right? That is good for the whole and therefore good for the individual. When you see that just stripped away piece by piece, and you see a healthcare system that's tied to employment under these autocrats, right? Like how what is it other than subjugation? Because yeah, okay, you don't want to work for Amazon, but you have to work for Amazon because they have healthcare. I don't know if Amazon has healthcare. Right. I don't think they do, actually. It's maybe a bad example, but
I get what you mean. Like in terms of like what you have to like buy into. It's like what you were talking about previously. Like if you want to save the world, you think that you have to sort of be part of the system, even if you want to try to break away from it. But people even that aren't trying to break away from it, like you just are like part of the system, and there's really like very little things that you can do. And we have a lot of power.
I'll say, and maybe just to cap it off, because I could go all night on this, but to cap it off, I'll say the thing that I'm the most proud of in this moment is that in spite of everything that's happening in the world and all of the things that we've lost over the last 2 months, and the sort of persistent tragedy that we're in the midst of, that it's hard to kind of wrap your brain around. So I think most of us aren't. In spite of all of that, society is still standing. Right? Civilization is still a thing. And I think that a lot of us, I think that the majority of people believe that a social safety net is a good thing. And that some people have been turned around on that. Because the alternative to us all kind of sitting in our houses and waiting out this storm, and talking about what are the things that we need to do in order to make sure that our neighbors are taken care of, the people who aren't as fortunate, who aren't able to work from home, who were laid off by whatever company they were working for, and it's out of their control, or whose small business is about to go under because of all of this. Like, what can we do for them? We're doing that, and the alternative is that people took to the streets and basically like riot, right? And change things via, a violent revolution. And look, we're not out of anything yet. We're still in the midst of this crisis, and there's still a lot of time left on the clock for things to get a lot worse. But everybody's behavior thus far makes me believe that we're not going to go that route. And I think that is a good thing. That is a positive thing. And that communicates to me that a lot more people want to do the right thing and the good thing than the wrong thing. And I think that one of the biggest pieces is just communicating to everyone what the difference is between right versus left and right versus wrong, because I think that a lot of the conversation is right versus left, and it's talking points, and I'm going to vote for those talking points, as opposed to looking at the person, looking at their character, looking at the decisions that they've made in the past, and a history of action or inaction, and making your judgment based on that, as opposed to what they say in the debate. I think that that's where the conversation needs to shift to. And the most important part of it is don't ignore what's happening, right? Like, these daily press conferences are exhausting. It's very difficult. The thing that I'll say is the easiest thing to do if you're lazy like I am is just keep watching Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, because he's going to make sure that you know at least the most important points of all of this. Yeah. And then at least you'll be somewhat educated. And supporting that show is actually a positive thing, because like in the latest episode, he bought that erotic rat painting and donated.
No, I didn't watch the episode yet.
Sorry.
And somebody on the internet spoiled it for me, and I wanted to know if he found the erotic rat art. Erotic rat art. I love it.
There's more to the story, so that's not a total spoiler.
Great.
Sorry about that.
No, it's not. It's fine. The internet ruined it for me.
But yeah, like they donated. In his words, they forced HBO to donate $20,000 to the Pennsylvania Food Bank. So
yeah,
you're actually doing good by watching his ridiculously silly show, and hopefully getting some good ideas about things to talk about and where the discourse needs to go. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I could talk about it all night, but we're going to cut it off there. Amanda wants to go to sleep. That's the truth of it.
I just feel right. I'm sleepy, and like Mondays are the worst. And I realized this too. You texted me in the middle of the day when I literally I was full tilt from 1 p.m. until 7 p.m. And you texted me at 4:40 or something, where I just was like, I can't even think about messaging you right now. I just need to get through this day. And then I've got to anyways, so I apologize. I'm tired. Maybe Mondays aren't the best all around for me.
Maybe not.
Next time, hopefully I'll watch something that we can actually talk about. Cause I know people want to talk about Schitt's Creek, and I know that,
we both need to finish that first, and then
I haven't even started Schitt's Creek, so I don't know if that's necessarily something that we can
I'm gonna ask you this question right here on the air on the podcast. Do you have access to Rise of Skywalker?
Oh, I've already watched it a couple times. I bought it myself.
You bought the digital or physical copy or whatever? Yeah.
Digital. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Remember that was like the day that it came out. I found out because you nerds were all talking on Twitter.
Yeah.
I feel like Tim messaged about it, and I was like, "What? It's available!" And it was a thing where that night I was kind of feeling like I wanted to watch The Last Jedi anyways. Yeah. And then Rise of Skywalker came out, and it was the best. So that was early.
Here's what we're gonna do next week.
Ooh.
I don't know if it's gonna be on.
Ranked.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be on Monday or not. Yeah. But
Finish ranked.
We'll figure it out
Woo.
this week. It won't be on Monday. So let's say probably going to be Sunday night. We're going to do a watch along.
Ooh. That's fun.
So we'll actually, I know I said no more live streams, but this is a good reason to do one. Because we're just gonna put on The Rise of Skywalker, and we're just gonna watch it, in different locations, and just talk over it. Basically a commentary. So if people want to join us for that, we'll put the details out. Whether it ends up being Sunday or a different day, I'll let you guys know. On our social media, and you guys can watch along or get the podcast later and just sync it up while you watch it at your own convenience.
I like this. I'm looking forward to it.
But that means that we don't have to worry about topics for next week. We don't have to worry about etc. That gives us an extra week to finish watching Schitt's Creek
in a week.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. That works.
And next week we will literally just chill out and watch The Rise of Skywalker and talk about why The Last Jedi is so much better.
I was going to say, can we just watch The Last Jedi instead? But yes. Okay.
That would be very self-serving. We promised everybody that we would do a Star Wars ranked when it came out, and obviously our ability to sit in the same room and watch it has been hindered. But
we'll figure
I also, right before we do our sign off, I just want to take the opportunity in front of all of our listeners to say thank you, Amanda, for the Spider-Man cookies and the little journal.
Yay!
We appreciate it around here. Amanda dead dropped some Spider-Man cookies and an activity book, basically, on our doorstep. Hit the door 3 times and ran.
I did, but I saw you like come out, and I was like, I didn't even think that you would look out the window and then just like not come outside. But I did see you like actually open the door. I was like, oh, okay, good, Mike's there. But that was like the last thing I did as I left the city. I was like driving out of town, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna drop. But also it was like I was just like kind of being like, I feel like you guys need some additional things, and you sent me such lovely, like it really like Cara sent such a lovely card and Cassie photos. So I was like, you know what, I'll send.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't contaminated with anything. No, we did research. It can't live on paper, so it can't. Not for long.
Not for long enough. Yeah. It's fine.
Cool. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for listening. You can head to thunderquack.com to check out all the other great podcasts in the Thunderquack Podcast Network, and you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search Thunderquack Podcast Network. It's not like there's another one. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty easy to find us. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Arkwulf, ARKWULF.
And I'm at Akonkin, AKONKIN. That's on Twitter, and you can add an 86 to that for Instagram.
And as we talked about earlier, if you like the podcast, you can support us in 3 different ways. First, by going and leaving a rating and review in the podcast service of your choice. Reviews and ratings help other people find the podcast, which helps us grow the community and gives us the ability to do more cool things and maybe makes live streams worth it eventually. The other ways are, as I mentioned before, going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merchandise. I'm just gonna push the stickers again. Everybody seems to love the stickers. They're nice and affordable. The postage on them isn't crazy. So just buy a bunch of stickers, man. It's fun. Put stickers on things like you're in high school. Order a Trapper Keeper from some online service and then put Thunderquack stickers all over it so that your coworkers are like, why do you do that? But you know what? Right now they won't, because you're not in your office anyways. Do they still make Trapper Keepers? I don't know
what a Trapper Keeper is, and I was gonna ask, but I was like, does that make me stupid to ask?
It's like a 5-star. It's like a 5-star binder.
Please stop answering things. I hate it when people like give you something different and you're like, I don't know what that is either.
You don't know what a 5-star binder is? I think that a 5-star binder is the Canadian equivalent of a Trapper Keeper.
Okay, well, when you say the binder at the end of it, but when you just said 5-star, I was like, what the heck is a 5-star? But then binder.
5 stars a company? Anyway.
It's fine. I do.
The last way is by going to patreon.com/thunderquack and kicking in with your monthly pledge of support and getting some cool rewards in the process. But I already talked about all that before. that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next week for the Rise of Skywalker watch along commentary fun time.
Woo! All right. Stay safe, everybody. Wash your hands and be kind to one another.